Good morning, everybody. I'm Wardah Alkatiri from Indonesia, a country in Southeast Asia. I'm a researcher in interdisciplinary studies on societal environmental relations, with a special interest on the transition to low-carbon world in Muslim-majority societies. Today, I'm here to talk about the challenge of Muslim-Christian relations in the post-colonial world. So from my presentation, you will see that the challenge in this part of the world is unique, that you might not be familiar with. So I'm going to divide my talk into two main areas: factual and theoretical. I'll also be offering some insights gained from my experience in a Muslim-Christian dialogue, so to say, that took place in New Zealand. And from that, you may see some possible ways to navigate aspirations toward Muslim-Christian collaboration for the environment. Now I'm going to start by looking at the facts on the ground. I have to be honest that I feel somewhat awkward talking about the Muslim cooperation between Muslim and Christian, while the world is, the global humanities is collapsing around us. So pessimism over the possibility of a peaceful coexistence, including Muslim-Christians relations, is, I think it's very low at this time. It has just reached the nadir. And because for one thing, I need to mention this, in post-colonial world like Indonesia, where most of the population are Muslims, most people still confuse Christianity with the West. So any animosity of the West towards Muslims, with the global war on terror, rise of Islamophobia, and now Gaza, comes to account as the animosity of Christians toward Muslims. This is the problem in post-colonial world, yeah? So what makes matter worse is that the evangelical Christians in the global South are also the vocal supporters of Zionism. So as I said, the prospect of Muslim-Christian cooperation is at the nadir at this time. You may ask me why I'm here then. So the reason why I still wanted to attend this conference is because I believe I'm perhaps among the very few of Muslim scholars who have had an experience in a Muslim-Christian dialogue for the environment. And that beautiful thing transpired in New Zealand. The dialogue was initiated by Dr. Keith Morrison. He's a senior lecturer in the Environment, Society, and Design at Lincoln University, where I was doing my postgraduate studies there. And he's an Christian, Eastern Orthodox clergy. Keith is an Eastern Orthodox clergy. He's a referent. What I mean by dialogue was not just one-off meeting. It was not just a meeting that occurs one time, yeah? The meeting, the discussion took place over the course of several years during my stay in New Zealand for my postgraduate studies at Lincoln and then PhD at Canterbury. So it was really dialogue, yeah, discussion. And Keith is a soft-spoken and kind person who turned to be a good friend of mine and my whole family. And finally, we came to think that we're a perfect combination to spread the idea of Muslim-Christian reunion, something like that, yeah? in the face of the potentially catastrophic climate change, which we both see as a possible interpretation or exegesis of this ayah of the Holy Quran. So because I think I have a special experience, very precious experience that I must share with others, and I haven't had an opportunity to do so, nor a suitable occasion to do that. So I thought this conference might be one, yeah? So I must try to attend this conference. As you might see, I have a very fond memory of the dialogue with Keith and his friends. So I wish they could be here with us today. When I think about it back, there are a number of factors to consider that might have accounted for such a congenial and sincere and fruitful relationship towards a Muslim-Christian dialogue. And here's a quick recap from my experience that I'd like to offer to this forum. First, possibly, my background in perennial philosophy. I have a master's degree in Islamic philosophy with special interest in mysticism. I did a study at the Islamic College for Advanced Studies that was founded by Iranian philosophers in London, actually, and they opened a branch in Jakarta, in Indonesia. And this background provided me with a profound understanding of Christian spirituality. I studied Meister Eckhart and other Christian mystics like John the Cross, Teresa Avila, and of course, Francis Assisi, the saint of ecology, yeah? So, and also my friend Keith Morrison, he was also very interested in Sufism. So we had shared a common ground there. And secondly, Keith is an Eastern Orthodox Christian. He and his like-minded friends who were driven into the discussion on social and environmental issues were the type of people who were already very critical of the Western-led world order. Yes, so because as you probably aware, one of the most important contribution of environmentalism to the moral and political discourse of our time is that its critique of modernity. So that's a very important thing, another common ground. Furthermore, there is no history of Muslim-Christian conflict in New Zealand, yeah? So there's no burden of the past in New Zealand. Besides, New Zealand is a secular nation. About half of the New Zealanders are atheists. So most of Keith's friends in his SCDRI, Sustainable Community Development Research Institute, were non-religious, and some began to re-embrace Christianity. So that's also another point, yeah? So probably also non-religious people tend to be more open to new ideas and ideas that are diverged from their own, probably. And last but not least, New Zealand is a small, remote, and relatively unassuming farming nation. That could be a significant factor as well. If we consider how pompous the US and some European people have been towards Islam. And I will keep the last point, social and environmental justice, for the conclusion. And when I return home, when I go home, I found Indonesia is a contrast, a complete contrast to New Zealand. I think here's some information about Indonesia that I need to read because you all might not be familiar with it. Indonesia has the world's largest Muslim population and a long history of struggle for independence from the Dutch from the Dutch colonial by the Muslim groups. Before we get that aspect, let us look how Islam came to Indonesia as well. Historians contend that for the first time, Muslim in contact with Southeast Asia was from shortly after the time of the Prophet, when the third Caliph, Caliph Uthman, in the 7th century, he sent the emissaries to the court of China. They must have reached there by sea through Southeast Asia. Historians also give evidence that Islamic ideas traveled to Southeast Asia along the trade routes, largely from the influence of trade from Yemen, especially Hadramaut. And when Phoenician traveler Marco Polo visited Sumatra in the year 1200 something, he found Muslim communities. And when Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta visited in the year 1300 something, he reported the ruler followed Shafi'i school already. So historians also attempted to explain why the local people only began converting to Islam several centuries after the trade routes established. And they speculated that it was not until the emergence of Sufism at the mainstream in Islamic world in the 13th century, because the local in Southeast Asia at that time was characterized, the religion of the local was characterized by mystical doctrines of Hinduism and Buddhism. So when this religion, Islam, was presented in a mystical form too, they became attracted to it. So it's safe to infer that there was a largely peaceful spread of Islam in Indonesia. So with the prospect of Muslim-Christian relation in my mind when I returned from New Zealand, I look into the history of colonialism in Indonesia, and honestly, it's like opening a can of worms for me, honestly. 300 years of Dutch colonialism, and then the Society of Jesus and Catholic Freemasonry network, both were very instrumental with Father Josephus Peak at the lead, was very instrumental at the development of the Indonesian development ideology of the country with CSIS. This is CSIS, yeah? CSIS, Center for Strategic and International Studies. This is a high-level think tank that supplied the blueprint of modernization and development ideology of Indonesia. And it has been seen by many as also as connected to the CIA, I don't know. And then the continuing dominance of CSIS up to this day, yeah? And here, and some anthropology in environmental studies, they see that modernization in developing countries in post-colonial world often means exporting greed and dysfunction of the Western world. So Indonesian modern education produced largely the cornucopian, if you are familiar with this word in environmental studies, people who believe too much on science and technology and forget about the limit of the environment, yeah? And then technology enthusiasts, and then consumer cultures, and also at the end perpetuating inequality. This is the problem of the CSIS-led post-colonial world order, Indonesian order, national order. Minority beneficiaries sit at the hub of the development process, and then larger minority retain economic connection to the former, and then the vast majority grappling with fewer jobs, less land, and ravaged environment. So, so to all intents and purposes, I would say this is the problem, yeah? There is inequality. There is power imbalance between Muslim and Christians in Indonesia. In addition, the economic dominance of the minority Christian groups, the Christianized Chinese ethnicity, is now getting more aggressive and pervasive with the ascending power of oligarchy during the Joko Widodo's administration. Many has written about that. So on top of those, the Global South also experiencing a more aggressive Christian missionaries with the 10x40 window project. If you can Google it about this. So moving to the theoretical area of my research, yeah. let's look what an Islamic thinker, Rashid Ghanouchi, says about this. This book was, oh yeah, okay. This book was translated by David Johnson. Is Dr. Johnson? Yeah, yes. So in his book, he said that in a Muslim majority society, non-Muslims should also be free to propagate their views, given da'wah of their religion, of their worldviews. So few points against Islam will reach Muslim by any means. And the only means of protection against any discussion is to offer another discussion. Yeah. So in other words, instead of banning ideas about a Christian missionary, he was calling Muslims to offer better ideas, so that Muslims can defend Islam in an open, free environment and defending free expression. This is okay, this sounds good, but I think in reality, on the ground, it's not that easy. I have a theory to explain that with symbolic interactionism. Yeah, this is a sociological framework to explain the competition between Muslim and Christian with modernity at the top. So at the end, humility, the environmental humility and religious humility has been sacrificed. What humility is, I was referring to some literature, especially by Brown Taylor, dark green humility, religious, psychological, and affective attribute of pro-environmental behaviors. So this humility, environmental humility, according to these scholars, are attributable to pro-environmental behavior. And these scholars, they always, this literature always claim that monotheistic religion, Abrahamic religion, Christianity in particular, promote environmentally destructive belief and behavior. This is by this scholar. Main reason for that, because monotheistic religion are deeply anthropocentric, with their assumption that human beings have superior spiritual and moral value and special earthly authority. So in contrast, they say indigenous religions are believed to be less anthropocentric than major world religions, which means that they are more considerate to non-human organisms and aware of their needs and their value to the habitats upon which all life depends. So my focus of my research problem is this, the humility, religious humility. And I argue with this theory, symbolic interactionism, that as a result of the long-standing competition between Muslim and Christian with regard to modernity that was propagated by the Christian group, the Christian empire, the Muslim too began slowly to embrace enlightening-based rationality and objectified nature. Yes, just nature is equal to natural resources. Nature has no value other than that. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by the loss of humility. And I read about that in the loss of Tawhidi worldview, which has been published in Equinox, also in UK. Another ecological consequence of modernization in Islamic world. And from this conference, I'll try to write another article specifically about Indonesia, because embroiled in rivalry with the Catholic Masonry legacies and Protestant evangelist engagement in politics, is interfaith Muslim Christian for the environment possible? This is too bad, yeah. And finally, on conclusion, this is for my discussion with Keith Morrison and his friends in New Zealand. We came to the conclusion that social and environmental justice should be we should make it as a common ground toward Muslim-Christian collaboration for the environment in the Anthropocene. Thank you very much.